All right, Saagar, what are you looking at?
If you were to ask me what I got wrong over a year and a half ago when COVID first became a thing, it was this. I underestimated how right many of my friends were that the threat of COVID as a disease would become cover for power grabs by politicians, censorship campaigns by the mainstream media, and big tech. That ultimately we might end up doing more damage to the fabric of our society than any virus ever could. Now, one area where things unequivocally have been the worst is the realm of censorship. In a way, you can almost understand it. It's March 2020. We have a deadly pandemic. Some people are lying about it. If you're on YouTube or Facebook or whomever, you start to freak out. You have to take down the guy who says Bill Gates is planting a microchip in you, or that the earth is flat and that COVID is part of that. But once everybody gets, let's say, May of 2020, and you say COVID leaks from a Wuhan lab, well, now you have a censorship infrastructure. We have the mainstream media saying, well, it can't possibly be true. So Google and Twitter and Facebook, they fire up the delete machine. Except, wait, that one turned out to be at the very least plausible, and if I were to speculate, the most likely explanation for the origin of the virus. That's when things got kind of crazy. And despite the fact that big tech completely failed on the lab leak, they have kept their censorship infrastructure afloat with the new hysteria over the Delta variant. It's now firing in all cylinders. That's the context for the story I want to highlight today. How YouTube has suspended Sky News Australia's account of nearly 1.8 million subscribers for what it calls COVID misinformation. Now, if you're not familiar with Sky News Australia, they have done impressive and important work with regard to the lab leak story, revealing definitively that the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the Chinese government lied about having live bats within the lab. Sky News Australia uncovered evidence showing that not only to be true, but also an early interview with one of the lab's so-called safety directors. That's the context. You can hate Sky News if you want. You can also hate Rupert Murdoch. But according to Sky News, the videos which earned them a YouTube strike and the inability to post on their channel for 7 days was, according to their digital editor, Jack Houghton, quote, among the videos deemed unpalatable for societal consumption were debates around whether masks were effective and whether lockdowns were justified when considering their adverse health outcomes. He continues, the stance taken by some commentators at this network was that masks are not effective in containing outbreaks, particularly when mandated outside in fresh air. Some also took issue with the frequency and mechanisms of locking down Australians. But the most important context is this. In the videos which were taken down, those commentators were also disagreed with by others, and their views were included in the videos. Here's the crazy part. Australia isn't even America. They actually have pretty hardcore media regulators over what you can and cannot say, and even their own local authorities didn't object to any of their broadcasts. So the very Australian authorities charged with policing misinformation didn't do anything. But Google is superseding them both to say that actually those old videos, which are debating masks and lockdown, just not going to fly around here. This is the hellscape that we've landed in. The hubris of our government, of our media, and of the big tech companies situation is grounded in the singular belief that they know better than us, that they know better, they can decide what is acceptable to discuss and what is not. Now, maybe in a perfect world, that's true. But what happens when the very people charged with enforcing this are completely wrong? Well, I've already mentioned lab leak, but what about the media themselves? As we pointed out yesterday, the New York Times, the Washington Post, NBC News all spread egregious misinformation this weekend about vaccines. The New York Times made it seem like the Delta variant was just as infectious to vaccinated Americans as to unvaccinated Americans, which is not true. The Washington Post was even worse, making it seem like you might be more likely to get infected if you're vaccinated. NBC News was just a dunce. They didn't include any statistical context for how 125,000 Americans who've been vaccinated have had breakthrough cases. All of those, by the very standards that YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook have put forward, would and should qualify as misinformation. But they skate by. If you question orthodoxy on COVID, you're going to get banned. Now, if you push orthodoxy, which is free of facts, you live to misinform another day. And I'll end with this. When all else fails, trust the government to tell us what's true or not, right? Yeah, that's completely wrong. Arguably, the government itself has been one of the chief purveyors of misinformation on COVID since the beginning, from lying about masks to Fauci moving the goalposts, admitting it on herd immunity, to pushing masks on fully vaccinated Americans who are basically zero threat of getting really sick from COVID. When everyone in charge of policing the truth has been caught themselves either lying or screwing up, then we need to err on what our country was founded on: debate and free expression, because we are nothing without it. And I tried to make it not about Sky News Australia.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.